This DSA one UGA fan rants and opinions. I got a few things I want to talk about. Somebody in the comment section asked me about making a video talking about Stetson Bennett. I'm gonna talk about that. Golden Blue Dude, his opinions or conspiracy theory or whatever the case may be with that, and the national championship. Now, when Stetson Bennett first came on as the quarterback for UGA, I at first, not that I didn't like it, I just didn't know what to expect per se. And I also wasn't following the whole hype that everybody had behind the man. Like, the way they was talking about him, it seemed as if he just didn't make no mistakes. Oh, well, he threw the ball, they should have caught it. Well, if he put it somewhere where they could catch it, it would have been caught. And it's just 50-50. That's not his fault all the way, and it's not the receiver's fault or whoever's catching the ball fault all the way. That's just how it is. Now, as the season went on, where his career went on from the 2 games, I think 2 or 3 games that he actually took over from JT Daniels, he was showing that he was progressing, but to a degree to me, and I can be wrong, and I don't mind being critiqued or told otherwise. He didn't really seem like he was progressing like that for real. Like at one point in time, he kind of reminded me of From 2.0, except for with movement. Like Stetson was going to at least get out the way. Last year, he showed he had some mobility. This year, it seemed like he stepped it up just a little bit more. So other than that, I mean, I'm happy for the man. He got a back-to-back championship, and I thought he should have left. Only for the aspect of the other quarterbacks we got deserve to get a chance to actually play a full season, not get in garbage time and show off for a quarter or half of a quarter, whatever the case may be. That was my aspect on it. It wasn't that he did bad things. I just wanted to see the future quarterbacks of UGA get an actual chance. And I knew that as long as Stetson was there, they weren't going to get it. But coming into this season, outside of the Missouri game, the Kent State game, and I think I caught all of the Missouri game. I think I caught like the highlights of the Kent State game. Other than that, Stetson really didn't look too bad. And I said this before, if he was to play the whole season like he played that Michigan game that we had in the playoffs last year, I could see us doing a lot at that point in time. And in a sense, he was showing sparks of that as the season went on. Like he showed he had that in him more and more as the season went on. So as this year took off, started to come to an end as far as going to the SEC championship, and going into the playoffs, he looked nice. Sometimes he did look like he didn't know what he was doing per se. And some of that could have been the receiver's mistakes. I'm not gonna put all that on him. And I have not been a Stetson hater. I just didn't agree with a lot of the props that people gave him for things that a lot of us were seeing that was happening. Whether it was the truth or not, and I'm not saying that people were lying on him, I'm gonna say it in the aspect of he wasn't as good as what people were saying he was. Put it like that. Now, this part is going to tie into the last part, the middle part of what I'm talking about, which might take a minute. This is also an opinion/rant page. I make opinions, rants. I'm going to probably be all over the place, so just bear with me. And I'm also cold. But anyway, Golden Blue Dude had the audacity to say that ESPN, and I'm paraphrasing and summarizing some of the things that I heard him say. This is not everything that came directly out of his mouth. But saying that ESPN is in bed with the SEC, and that's the reason why they're dominant. I hear salt in Golden Blue Dude's voice when he said that. I can hear the salt. I can hear the ocean in his voice because of all of the moist salt that he had for the SEC being dominant. Oh, well, it was Alabama that did the majority of the carrying. What conference are they in? So it don't matter. Alabama's part of the SEC. Georgia's part of the SEC. LSU is part of the SEC. Auburn's part of the SEC. Any one of them teams or teams that I did not mention win a championship, it comes back to where? The SEC. It don't go to the NCAA. It comes back to the SEC. Also, he seemed to have a bit of an issue, and I've also seen and heard other people say this as well, that you can't be a conference homer. Like, you can't pull for another team in your conference for winning the national championship and bringing it back to your conference. I would disagree with that, only because I don't like Florida, but I pull for Florida to win the national championship against Ohio State. I don't like Alabama, but I respect them. There's a difference. I respect Alabama, but I pull for them for whoever they was going against, whether it's Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon, Boise State, if they ever made it. I'm going to pull for them because they are part of the SEC. It does mean more. Oh, another thing. The phrase "it just means more" didn't get big until the SEC and ESPN linked up, according to Gold and Blue Dude. One thing he has failed to acknowledge in his video of Salt is that conferences have a cycle. Nebraska, when they were in their conference, they was beating everybody. They had a cycle. Miami, as he pointed out, had, I want to say, 5 in the Big East before they came to the ACC. That conference had its cycle. Maybe the Big Ten, they had their cycle. It is now the cycle of SEC. SEC is running it right now. There will come a time when, let's say, the Pac-12 take over, like when USC was winning at least 2 titles when Reggie Bush and them was there, maybe even before that. It might be their turn. Oregon State, they could actually probably take off and win a few titles. We don't know. That ESPN don't have nothing to do with the conferences winning what they win and how they win. I left a comment on his page. He's saying it. He liked it. That's cool. Is ESPN paying these coaches to go to these SEC schools? Is ESPN also paying any of these students to go to the SEC schools? Or are these coaches out here on the recruiting trail getting these students to flip from one school to another to come there? So I guess because Colorado State is not in the SEC, not Colorado State, excuse me, Colorado is not in the SEC. Deion Sanders didn't have no pull in getting some of them players to transfer out or go into the transfer portal and get pulled. That's just one example. Or Lincoln Riley, once he left Oklahoma, those players didn't transfer out and go there. So ABC, who else? I want to say NBC, but Notre Dame got NBC on lock, so they pretty much dead in the water. And like maybe a few other major TV corporations, they had something to do with that, right? So that makes perfect logical, and I'm stuttering on purpose. Perfect logical sense, correct? All right. So Mario Cristobal, who's in the ACC, he didn't have nothing to do with his ranking being as high as it was as far as recruiting, right? Whatever Fox Sports, I guess, that watches that's got a contract with the ACC, they had something to do with that, right? So that's what happened. These major TV conglomerates got something to do with these coaches and these students going to these schools as to why they're as good and as big as what they are. Even he himself had broke it down during the off season as to what conferences make the most money. And I thought at one point in time it was between the Big Ten and the SEC that had the most money out of the other 5 conferences. So how is it that the SEC is the big bad bully when the Big Ten is supposedly making more money than the SEC? Up until Oklahoma and Texas come in, which will be in 2024. What's going on with that? The ESPN make two of the strongest schools in the Big 12 leave? I mean, according to Golden Blue Dude, they ain't have nothing to do with it. They came to the SEC because they got money. So because the SEC is making more money, why would you not go somewhere where you can make more money? And then on top of that, with Texas and Oklahoma, especially Texas having quote unquote oil money, they don't need nobody. They ran the Big 12. Why would you not run away? Why would you leave a conference that you predominantly run? The Longhorns are so strong in the Big 12 that you get an actual flag for doing the horns down. Why would you leave that? Like, why? Why would you run from that and come to a conference where you know it's a lot harder to win? Texas hasn't, I'll put it like this. When Texas beat Georgia like 3-4 years ago, that should have been their time to take off, and they didn't. Now you're coming to the conference that Georgia is in, along with Florida, South Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Arkansas, who dog walked y'all, I think, twice. And you want to run into the fray of that? Help me make that make sense. You running from being a bully on your block to going to another block where it's bigger, badder, and more bullies. Maybe you want to see how tough you are. And I'm saying this as compared to what Golden Blue Dude was saying. And no, this is not to start any beef. Nothing like that. I like Golden Blue Dude commentary. I like his content. The dude is funny to me, especially when he get with these outlandish ass thoughts that he has. I also watch a few other people such as Kangaroo Black, Uncle Lou, Big Dog Brett, Top Billing every now and then, Hurricane T2Y. I mean, I can't think of anybody else right now. But I mean, as far as YouTubers go, those. Oh yeah, and the Irish guy. I forgot his name. The Notre Dame fan. I forgot his name. But anyway, I watch these people. Oh yeah, Carolina Jackpot and Pigskin Pete every now and then. I watch them as well. But it's just crazy to me that he had this idea that ESPN has something to do with the SEC being bigger, better, and badder than most conferences. Because a lot of people wasn't talking this shit when all these other conferences was winning every now and then. And I'm saying every now and then, like the Big 10 might have somebody win, the Big 12 might have somebody win, the Pac-12 might have somebody win, and then they just keep flip-flopping amongst those three, and then you rarely get an SEC team in there like that to actually get a win. And maybe the ACC, in a sense, the ACC and the SEC were kind of like the odd dog out in the BCS era until like Alabama started knocking folks off, and then Jameis Winston and Florida State ended up going in there, and also Clemson ended up going in there. But other than that, we ain't really seen nobody out of either one of those conferences going there and do something. So how is that such an issue? Hell, if ESPN was goddamn showing ACC games, do you think Clemson would still be as dominant? Or better yet, the Big 12. Do you think Texas and Oklahoma would still be the reigning bullies over there in that conference? Shit, he's still hoping that Notre Dame brings West Virginia into the ACC. Fuck out of here. The ACC didn't want y'all. I wonder why. That's no knock to him. That's no knock to his team. I still want Georgia to get that get back from losing to West Virginia under Mark Richt. I want that to happen. I don't give a fuck what their record is. I want that to happen. More than likely, it'll happen when Georgia's on the downturn. Okay, it is what it is. Also, I'm not going to be a Georgia fan that's going to turn into some spoiled Alabama fans and be like, Georgia can't be defeated. Georgia just this, just that. No, I'm going to be as realistic as possible. I'm going to enjoy every win that we get. I'm going to be mad at every loss we take, but I'm still going to enjoy the ride. That's all I can do. That's all I'm supposed to do. I enjoy competition. I enjoy sports. I mean, Me sitting up here enjoying that the SEC has what, 17, no, 14 of the last, I want to say 18 to 21 national championships, maybe more than that, maybe less than that. I could be off, give or take. Why would I not be a conference homer per se? If Vanderbilt was to make it to the national championship and play Oregon State, I'm gonna pull for Vanderbilt to bring the championship back. People who talk about conference homerism is like, you shouldn't be proud of the conference that your team is in because your team is either sucking or they just didn't, pull it out or squeak out a win or two to get into the national championship to bring it back. Like, to me, you should pull for your conference, regardless of the team that's there. If that team makes your conference look stronger, that also means more students want to come to those schools. More students that come to those schools, more visibility that gets shown to that conference. That's part of the problem that it seems like Gold and Blue do all the analytics on and don't understand. If West Virginia was kicking ass in the Big 12, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. Because back in the early 2000s, I want to say they was doing okay. I don't really know their record like that off the top of my head, and I really don't follow West Virginia like that. West Virginia was a decent opponent, I will say that, in the conference they was in at the time. But then when conference realignment happened and Missouri and A&M came to the SEC, they tried to. I mean, yeah, they transferred into the SEC. West Virginia could have went to the Big 12. Like, y'all right in that realm. Y'all right in that area. Y'all could have went to 3 conferences, SEC, Big 12, or ACC. But as you put it, the SEC didn't want y'all. I mean, the ACC didn't want y'all. The SEC really couldn't pick y'all up because they was already going after Missouri and A&M, or vice versa. So it would have made the conference lopsided to have 3 new teams and not a 4th. The Big Ten, which is also regionally closer, would have worked. But apparently they didn't want y'all either. So that sounds like a personal issue that can't nobody fix per se. You went into a conference that was 3rd place out of all 5, maybe 2nd, no 3rd. Yeah, I'll say 3rd. SEC, Big Ten could be 1 or 2. Then the Big 12, then ACC, then Pac-12. So you decide to go in the Pac-12 and travel halfway across the country to play them teams. Not saying USU had the control of that, but I'm just saying your AD decided to be cool with that instead of just staying in the Big East, but in a sense really couldn't stay in the Big East because they were being broken up. And it didn't help. So that sounds like your AD got an issue. And Georgia AD got an idea, well, the new one, because I think the old one stepped down, got an idea of how to make this thing work. Also, the SEC conference commissioner is making business moves. I don't think nobody else trying to catch up with that man in that aspect. Well, they're trying to, but I mean, do you really think it's gonna work? Also, I watched his videos on that, talking about this team can go here, this team could go there. What if the Big Ten and the SEC just pretty much become the new or the miniature version of the NFL, the top half versus the bottom half? Let's just say for hypothetical reasons that was to happen. The championships will stay in the SEC or the Southern Conference, which it would probably be named that, and I give Golden Blue Dude credit for that. The Big Ten or the Big North, probably what they would be called, wouldn't hardly have any wins as far as national championships. Because all of the Southern schools, including going into the Midwest and out West, would beat the Northern schools. West Virginia would probably be included in that, but that don't mean it will win enough to win the conference championship to go play a northern school to win the championship. Also, why don't the SEC just make their own playoffs? Then again, it wouldn't be a good idea. Let's just say the SEC gets 24 teams. Who's stopping them? You don't think the nation will watch a SEC national championship game compared to the actual NCAA national championship game? The majority of the teams would have had to play play each other. It could be 3 pods of 4 or 4 pods of 3 or whatever the case may be. East versus West. Whoever wins in that is the national championship. So who wouldn't watch that? Oh, it will get boring real quick. Like it's not getting boring now, as to why a lot of fans are bitching and complaining as to the 14 playoff isn't enough, and not enough teams are getting in. And to a degree, I agree. I was hoping they would have started off with 4, then move it to 6 and see how that works. Then move it to 8 and see how that works. And then move it to 12 to see how that works. No, they're jumping straight into 12, and then y'all gonna be bitching and complaining that the majority of the teams between the Big 10 and the SEC are winning the majority of the championships. We need more teams in. What should happen is this. They should have gradually moved up from 4 to 8 or 4 to 6, then to 8, then to 12. Not straight into 12. But it's going to make money, so people are going to watch, so that's how that's going to work. Don't be surprised if the top 4 seeds, at least 2 are SEC teams, meaning they get a bye, while everybody else has to fight to get to that second round, which means you're going to be playing a well-rested team out of the SEC. Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, possibly even Kentucky or Arkansas, if they actually manage to go, let's just say 10-2, 11-1, but don't make it to the SEC championship. 3 teams in the top, let's say 4 or 5, or maybe in the top 8 in the SEC championship. I mean, not SEC championship, in the playoffs. Y'all are already complaining now. Just imagine when that happens. Oh, well, the smaller schools should have got a chance. I think the last 3 spots are for the smaller schools, like an Appalachian State or Coastal Carolina, or let's just say a FAMU or Jackson State or San Diego State or North Dakota or North Texas, Tulane. What if one of those schools, even Notre Dame, since they're independent, what if those schools get a chance to get in the bottom spot? You think they got enough players to pull off a first round win, then go to a second round and play one of the 3 SEC teams, possibly 2 SEC teams or 2 Big Ten teams? Just imagine Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. Michigan, Oregon. Michigan State, Tennessee. Like, do you really think that's gonna work? I mean, y'all bitching and complaining now? Just wait till the 12-team playoff get put into effect next year. If the SEC has at least 4 teams in the top 10, those 4 teams are gonna make it. So if Alabama don't make it to the SEC, they're in the playoff. If Georgia doesn't make it to the SEC, I meant to say championship, they're in the playoffs. If Tennessee does what they did this year, next year, they're in the playoffs. Who's knocking off those 3 teams if they have a year like this year, next year? Oh, yeah, not to forget LSU. If LSU pulls off a 10-2, 9-3 record, who's beating those 4 teams? Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, 1-2, then everybody else from the SEC under that. How y'all gonna beat that? I'm saying you all, because it seems like it's everybody versus the SEC. Who gonna run through the 4-team SEC gauntlet? Well, I take that back. Excuse me, a 2-team SEC gauntlet. You might beat LSU, but you might have to play Alabama or Georgia after that for the national. That's if one of them two don't knock each other off. And in a sense, the committee's probably going to set it up to where neither one of those teams knock each other off just to see who makes it to the championship. Everybody was saying, even I agreed to this, that Ohio State and Georgia was the national championship game. This is DSA 1, UGA fan rant and opinions, coming back with a part 2.